Hello, I'm Seth. This is Acquired Salary, the best living through career mastery. In today's video, I'm going to go over CNBC's new video on what the rise of fake job listing means for the job market. With that, I'm going to jump right into it.
Meet John Doe. He's in his early 20s and eager to jump into the workforce. He sees a job listing that looks perfect to him. So he brushes up his resume, he writes an awesome cover letter, applies, and then waits. And waits. So after a month or so, he actually sees the same job posting relisted, which makes him super frustrated. John isn't alone. Many people are frustrated by applying to these kinds of jobs that seem to have no intention of hiring anyone.
From that standpoint, you don't even have to be new to the workforce, trying to enter the workforce. If you are currently gainfully employed and you just throw your resume or a few job applications out every so often to, see if you can get a better offer, you've probably run into this because it seems like almost the majority of jobs posted are fake job postings at this point in time. I think this video is going to get into some more of the data around how severe it has gotten, but essentially these are ghost jobs, and let's get back into it.
You are in the position of trying to find a new job. Of course, you don't want to waste your time applying for these ghost jobs.
But it turns out all those open job postings that you see online might not even be real.
Ghost jobs are a phenomenon that have existed for a long time, but they've come to light much more in recent years, and they've become much more of a significant issue in the job market.
4 in 10 companies posted fake job listings in 2024, and 3 in 10 are currently advertising for a role that isn't real.
If you're advertising for a role that isn't even real, you're really screwing over the candidates and tarnishing your candidate experience, which can turn people away from wanting to work for you in the future. Obviously, companies have a reason for doing this. One of those reasons might be they're trying to build up a talent pool or a talent list. However, if you think about it a little bit more, this doesn't necessarily work in the long run. Yeah, sure, you can be intending to shorten your lead time for hiring for a new role, but if somebody's applying for a job and they're actively seeking, likelihood is in whatever it is, 1, 3, 6 months down the line, when you're actually ready to hire those people, they've probably accepted a different position. So it's kind of pointless because recruiters are going to have to go and actively recruit anyways. So it's kind of frustrating. And 4 in 10 job listings being fake means, 40% of the job applications that you spend your time on could be essentially wasted time.
According to a May survey from Resume Builder.
The rise of ghost job posting definitely points to a cooling in the economy. We are seeing that employers are more hesitant to make that hire, and it just points to the fact that demand for talent is slowing down.
Here's why ghost jobs are on the rise.
Yeah, there's certainly plenty of indicators that the economy and specifically the job market is cooling. Especially if you compare it to 2022, like we were at exceptionally high levels of like a hot job market where it was the candidate market, and now it's definitely the employer's market. And so this is very prevalent in today's day and age, especially in consideration of the other economic indicators that we might be entering a recession.
Ghost jobs are actually not scams. They're from real companies, but they are openings that don't actually exist, that companies not actually hiring for that role at this moment in time. They might be interested in hiring for that role in the future, or maybe they were hiring for it, but due to budget cuts, those roles were closed or put on hold.
A ghost job is essentially a job that remains open online and never gets filled. The occurrence of ghost jobs has increased quite dramatically over the past 5 years. We're seeing a decline in the rate of hires to job postings, and that rate has basically halved over the past 5 years. So whereas in 2019, we saw 8 hires per 10 job postings, we are now seeing 4 hires per 10 job postings, which of course is quite...
If you just do the math on that, at the very start of the video, they said 4 in 10 job postings are fake job postings. Well, this is saying that, 2 in 10 were fake job postings in 2019 to 2020, but now we're at the point where essentially 6 in 10 are fake job postings. So if you do the math on that, 20% is now up to 60%. That's almost a 200% increase in the number of fake job postings. So things are really bad out there, and especially when you take into consideration the jobs numbers reported by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They just revised down. They said we had created 2.9 million jobs, but they actually reduced that by 818,000 jobs, which is around a 30% decrease in the number of jobs that have actually been created, which is all indicating that, the job market is certainly in a bad spot if you're seeking a new job or switching roles.
quite a dramatic drop. This is a pretty worrying development because it just softens the signal of what a job posting really means and whether there is truly a hiring intention behind that from the employer point of view.
I think we're seeing a lot of ghost jobs lately for the same reason that I think a lot of people keep their Tinder profiles up, even if they're not actively looking for a relationship. It's because we like to keep our options open for, whether it's a good or a bad thing. Companies are no different. Companies know that talent is not always available when they are ready to hire. So they want to be able to attract applications from potentially great candidates, even if they're not right now able to give that person a job.
Because market visibility.
To her point, like keeping your options open and alluding or analogizing the job market to the dating market, it's an analogy that works out really well. And from that standpoint, I even kind of alluded to it. Like if you're career minded and want to develop a healthy career, you're probably throwing out job applications every so often just so that you can, switch roles and get a little bit of a pay bump when you switch roles, especially if you were in normal market conditions. So this is kind of a trend among all areas, like dating and relationships, the job market on employees and employer side.
If they are regularly listing their job openings, that will enhance a company's image, potentially showing them as a growing and thriving organization. And maybe that's a signal to investors or clients or competitors that their company is expanding, the brand perception.
Market research. Some companies, they have no idea what is a salary, what are the skill sets in demand. So they probably are posting to get that data. What are you expecting as a salary if you want to be in that role in this industry? So that's why they're collecting those data so that they can build a total compensation package and build the key performance indicator and net promoter scores for the companies if they really don't know how the recruiting works. So maybe it's for market insights to go into the future, but that does not benefit the job seekers at all.
So these two individuals just covered kind of some of the perverse incentives. If you're a publicly traded company, you want to look like you're doing well and you're growing, or you're investing in, potential future projects that are going to bring the company more growth. That's one of the reasons that some of these jobs are getting posted. So it's the optics in the hopes that you're going to boost your stock price. And then the other aspect is, perhaps you're trying to do market research on, okay, what is this role going to cost and how can we budget for it potentially in the future? But from the market research side of things, that's just outdated and poor practice, because there's plenty of industry reports that you can pull and data resources that you can use to create a comprehensive and competitive compensation package. So it's a little short-sighted if you go that route, because it's probably going to be the same amount of effort, especially if you're going to, go through phone screens. If you go through phone screens to get to the question of like, what are your salary expectations and your benefit expectations? Well, then if it's a 15, 30-minute call, you have to do that quite a number of times before you can build a comprehensive package. And so like the amount of time invested, it's not a high ROI endeavor when you have all these other free resources available.
Such a bad employer branding.
The U.S. job market significantly slowed in July 2024. However, if you look at the overall labor market, it's still healthy.
It's no question this report came in cooler than expected, but over the past 3 months, payrolls are up 170,000. That's certainly a good enough clip to keep the labor market healthy.
According to June's Job Openings and Labor Turnover Survey, commonly known as JOLTS, the number of unemployed persons per job opening stands at 0.8, indicating a tight labor market.
That 0.8 number is actually an interesting number because I think it can be a leading indicator for entering recession. I think there have been quite a few times where we've entered recession shortly after we've hit that 0.8 mark. So that's something to keep an eye on. But then again, as I said, the Bureau of Labor Statistics just revised the job numbers down about 30% from March of 23 to March of 24, which is again saying that it might not be as strong of a job market as we were originally led on to believe.
Openings and labor turnover, known as JOLTS. JOLTS coming in near expectations, 8,184,000. Actually, that's better than expectations.
Despite a tight labor market on paper, many workers are still struggling to find jobs, indicating a disconnect between the data and the real-life experiences of job seekers.
The rise of ghost jobs.
One of the things that Jeff Bezos talked about in his podcast with Lex Friedman was if the anecdotes or the gut feeling of like, this is what it actually feels like, you should probably trust that and then go take a look at how you're measuring the data. And I think there's some valid points that can be made that we're not necessarily accurately measuring the number of job openings as well as, the overall strength of the economy. Given the current existing data, we are below a 5% unemployment rate, which is historically the average. So, and I think the Fed was just talking about their target unemployment rate before they'll take any actions is 4.8. So if we start to look like we're going to hit 4.8 or go above that, then the Fed's going to take action to ensure that they can, continue to facilitate jobs growth.
Is muddying the job report. It's making it harder for the Fed to make decisions and understand what the labor market looks like. Anecdotally, people will tell you that it's very tough out there. We've talked about this notion of unhirables. People who are out of work, got laid off, and just can't find a job. They can't buy an interview. There are people coming out of college and they're finding that they're putting out 500, 800, 1,000 applications and they can't get an interview, let alone a job. And yet, when you look at the base numbers on the job boards, it would seem like we're in an incredibly robust hiring market. And it goes
to that point, yeah, it looks like we're in an incredibly robust job market, but if everybody's hiring but nobody's getting hired, that speaks to a skills gap. And I think that's kind of one of the things that college students or recent graduates run into is, it's been historically known that companies continue to believe that colleges are not preparing students or graduates for the workforce. So that's why it's partially so difficult to get a job right after college. But in addition to that, like getting marked as unemployable just because you've been laid off because all these companies have been conducting layoffs, like you shouldn't be labeled as unhireable just because you got laid off when, some of these companies are cutting 30% of their staff.
Jobs are creating a fake perception, and no one knows how fake that perception is. And the Fed and economists are trying to understand what's real and what isn't, and they haven't yet figured out the silver bullet to understand.
Over the past decade, JOLTS shows a marked increase in job openings for any given level of unemployment. And this is making people think, oh, well, maybe these openings aren't real openings. I would push back against that a little bit because JOLTS specifically asks employers to report only jobs that they could fill within the next 30 days. Most ghost jobs, that is jobs that employers don't intend to fill that soon or ever, either intentionally or by mistake, most of those shouldn't appear in JOLTS at all.
The Bureau of Labor Statistics stated that the JOLTS program doesn't use job listings for estimating job openings. While familiar with the term ghost jobs, the program believes it does not have any data related to the phenomenon.
From that standpoint, I don't think that's... Yeah, the Bureau of Labor Statistics intends to avoid counting ghost jobs in their reporting, but I don't think that's necessarily the case, especially, speaking from personal experience. Like I've always had recruiters contacting me and I'll, go through the application process just, to keep an eye on the market and see if a better opportunity presents itself. Well, especially over the last year or 2 years or so, I've been getting a lot more of those recruiter calls, getting that initial submission done. And then, 2-3 days later, the new update is, oh, they were intending to hire, but they put the position on hold. So with that fast of a change, like less than a week, you can see how some of those numbers reported could be inflated because things change quick and a position can be reported as we intend to fill this in 30 days, but a week later they are no longer hiring for the position. So the data certainly isn't infallible with the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
It's really hard as a job seeker to spot a ghost job. There are some signs. If you look at a job and you see that it's been open for over a month, sometimes it might say it's been open for many months. Some of the job boards will give an indication of how many people have applied for a job. And so if you see that a job has been open for 90 days and 10,000 people have applied, putting your application in, your 10,001, your number is probably a ghost job.
So my firm uncovered that.
Yeah, from that standpoint, if you're actively seeking a new job or trying to switch roles, don't be applying. Don't waste your time applying to positions that were not opened within the last week. Preferably not within the last day because, with how many people are seeking jobs right now, if you're not within the first 100, 200 applications, you're likely not even going to be looked at for months because, recruiters just kind of go down the list and they pull out the number of people that the company intends to interview based off of the resumes that are reviewed on the initial posting. So if it's at 10,000 applications, don't even waste your time.
There's 1.7 million job openings on LinkedIn in 2023, as of the date of the article, that were older than a month. And these we've determined to be potential ghost jobs. They're not necessarily ghost jobs. And that is the difficulty with ghost jobs, is that they're hard to fully prove. So there are ghost jobs out there for sure. They're rising and they're a problem, but it's not always easy to completely pin them down. And companies don't want to admit that they're posting ghost jobs because it looks bad for them. It's anti-employee, it's anti-job seeker, and it's very pro-company. So they want to be careful about that. So they're not going to openly admit that they're posting ghost jobs.
Another red flag.
I think the vast majority of companies are not intentionally trying to post ghost jobs. Obviously, there could be some executives that have the perverse incentive of like they're trying to grow the stock price, and so they're like, yeah, let's open this position. But the vast majority of the time, I think it's often the case that small businesses especially have a delayed time to action. Like you can know your path forward, but then you don't necessarily devote all the time to it because it takes away from the time that you have to spend elsewhere to, keep the business running. So there is potential explanation of why some of these jobs are open for months on end, but for the most part, that's just poor planning and execution on the business side of things rather than intentionally trying to post a fake job.
Flag for a job posting that's potentially a ghost job is when it's a vague job title. So for example, if they say we're looking for a video superstar, or we're looking for a project manager superstar, or they use some sort of identification that doesn't really say much, it could be an indication that they are just keeping a job opening available so they can attract talent and get a nice little pool of potential talent that they can pull from when and if they do need to hire.
Job boards are the
Yeah, from that standpoint, if you are seeking a job and you see some non-traditional like buzzword like superstar or anything like that, like I would recommend against applying to that job just because that's a failing on the business side of things. Like if you're a business looking to hire somebody and you have an understanding of what you want that role to be, well, you should take that job description, see what the typical title is for that job description, and that's what you should be publishing to your job requisition, not some unconventional approach, because that's going to increase the number of like actual qualified candidates. So that's like the efficiency side for the business. But overall, yeah, those positions that use silly words like superstar or all-star or anything like that are not necessarily going to be worth your time.
most popular places for job seekers to find opportunities. Indeed, ZipRecruiter, and LinkedIn are among the most popular job boards in the US. However, there's growing concern that some of these platforms aren't doing enough to address the issue of fake job postings.
Job posting platforms can address ghost jobs. The first line of addressing them is taking full responsibility for them, even if they're not the ones posting it. That's totally understandable, but it's still their site. It's their platform, and I believe they should take 100% responsibility. They should be verifying, they could implement an enhanced job post verification method. So potentially they're reaching out to multiple people in the hiring process, an HR person, a hiring manager, or verifying that person via social media.
I would love to see these job postings.
From that standpoint, there is a perverse incentive for, LinkedIn, ZipRecruiter, and Indeed, especially if they're publishing paid job postings. Like, they are a company, they want to make money, so they're not necessarily going to pull a job posting even if the company that's paying for it isn't taking a lot of action on it. It's a fine line because there's obviously the quality control that Indeed has to use to maintain a good reputation and stay atop as like one of the top job boards. However, there's also that perverse incentive to continue driving profit for the company that is going to make them more reluctant to pull job postings quick.
Sites like LinkedIn, ZipRecruiter, and Indeed hold companies a little bit more accountable for being transparent about how long the listings have been up and how recently the position was hired for if they're going to continue to keep the listing up. They should have...
If a position's been hired for, you should not keep a listing up because that's silly. You should be interviewing at least 3 candidates for a specific role. So if one of the candidates that you've interviewed gets hired and then they leave shortly after, just go with the second choice. Don't keep the job posting open to try and find, the next best option, because again, that's like back to the dating and relationships, there's, and same thing here with the job search. It's the paradox of choice. Like, if you don't make the decision, you're not going to take action and hire somebody and get somebody into that role. So you have to make a decision, whether it's the perfect one or not. Taking action is better than not.
Option somewhere to say, we recently hired this position. You can keep it up at that point. You can make it clear that, hey, if you think you're a good fit, go ahead and drop your application. Maybe if this doesn't work out, we'll reach back out to you.
CNBC reached out to a few major job posting platforms for comment. LinkedIn stated that their job posting policy requires posts to be genuine and accurate, and they're removed after 6 months. Indeed noted that some postings stay active during ongoing searches or continuous hiring, and ZipRecruiter stated that ghost jobs are prohibited under their policies.
At the end of the day, when it comes to ghost jobs, companies got to do what they got to do. And I think they're willing to take that reputational risk if it means they can attract the best talent and do what's best for them at the end of the day.
What ghost jobs?
If you want to attract the best talent, then you need to have a superb candidate experience through the application process, because the best talent is not going to deal with a terrible application process because other companies are going to be actively recruiting them. So taking that reputational risk for posting a ghost job is not the right decision, in my opinion.
Speak about the labor market is that it's not currently friendly to job seekers, and companies are taking advantage of the labor market. They're finding this opening that's this legal gray area, and they're taking advantage of it. And they don't need to be nice to job seekers because they think that they owe them nothing, and they think that they'll be able to push the cost of their own employees down with this, because there's a lot of sentiment online about it being impossible to find a job right now. So why am I going to leave my job and try to find another job? So I think what this might lead to, though, is job seekers doing the same thing to companies, like keeping the doors open for themselves and looking for jobs the entire time they're working and having many recruitment contacts, because that's what companies are doing. They're always looking for the next step and they're worried about themselves. Then that's going to create that same sentiment with employees.
Right now.
Yeah, from that standpoint, if you are a job seeker, you should always, keep a thumb on the scale to see what the job market is like and if you can get a better offer, because again, whenever you're actually working for the company, it's all, oh, we're a family. But then as soon as it comes to, oh, we have to lay you off because executives made some bad decisions and the company's not doing so well, it's like, it's just business. And again, that's just one of the double standards that's within the corporate world. Same thing goes with the 2-week notice. In order to, leave on a positive note and be able to eligible for rehire, you have to give a 2-week notice, but they can lay you off like same day. So just another double standard there. And you cannot be penalized for keeping your options open if you are a job seeker or currently working and trying to keep your options open.
Oh, even Jolts is giving us some confusing signals. The discussion about ghost jobs is one of the ways that the financial community is trying to understand these trends. Unfortunately, we probably won't know whether these really are permanent or temporary changes in the prevalence of ghost jobs until after this cycle is over and the more academic economists sit there and really parse the data out. But right now, what we have is a lot of hypotheses coming out of the people who are watching the data very closely. Ghost jobs is one interesting potential explanation for some of the more confusing patterns that we're seeing in the labor market.
Yeah, Nick T just talked about the labor report revision in how there was a 18,000 reduction. He's making the argument that it should only be in like the 300K range because the Census Bureau counts illegal immigrants and the jobs reporting number doesn't necessarily report illegal immigrants working for them. So there could be a discrepancy there potentially. But again, from that standpoint, it doesn't change the fact that there is a revision and the job market is not great right now, especially considering the triggering of the SOM rule and the inversion of the 10-2 yield curve. There's a lot of indications that we are in or about to enter a recession. And based on the data, we are in a white-collar jobs recession. So overall, what do you think? How does this relate to your lived experience? Do you think we are in a jobs recession? Is it just isolated to the white collar areas, or is it starting to expand into the broader market? I'd love to know what you think. Please share your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. And if you've made it this far into the video, you may as well like the video and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out on future videos to plan the right moves in your future so you can master your career. Speaking of career mastery, if you want to improve your leadership and managerial skills, I invite you to join the Acquired Salary community using the first link in the description below. There you'll gain access to my leadership and management course, as well as access to schedule a one-on-one with me directly so we can go over to how to apply these specific concepts to your situation. Until next time, thank you.